3 days passed without sleep for Frank Martinez. Dark circles hung beneath his bloodshot eyes as he pinned another article to the wall of his living room. Every surface was now covered with reports of strange lights, unexplained disappearances, and government cover-ups spanning decades. The sheriff's department had already shifted their focus from missing person to possible runaway. When Frank mentioned the spacecraft again, the lead detective had given him a card for a grief counselor. "They think I'm crazy," Frank muttered to himself, stepping back to examine his work. He'd created a timeline of similar incidents across North America, clustering around specific geographic regions. Montana had 3 reported cases in the last decade alone. Frank's phone rang. It was Pete Donnelly, an old Marine buddy who now worked at a radio telescope facility in New Mexico. "I checked those coordinates like you asked," Pete said, his voice low. "Frank, there was something there. Whatever it was moved too fast for our equipment to track properly, but it was definitely not one of ours." Frank's hand tightened around the phone. "I need more, Pete. Trajectory, estimated size, anything." "I'm risking my job even telling you this much," Pete sighed. "But the object was roughly the size of a naval destroyer and traveling at speeds that should be impossible. Its trajectory suggested it was heading toward the Kuiper Belt." Frank added this information to his wall. For the first time in days, he felt a flicker of hope. This was real. He wasn't crazy. And if Lily was on that ship, she was still alive. She had to be. Millions of miles away, Lily Martinez woke with a gasp. The air felt wrong, too thick, like breathing through a wet cloth. She lay on a smooth surface that seemed to adjust to her body, neither warm nor cold. The light around her pulsed gently, coming from nowhere and everywhere. "Hello," she called out, her voice sounding strange in the thick atmosphere. No answer came, but the wall across from her suddenly became transparent. Lily scrambled backward until she hit the opposite wall. On the other side of the now clear barrier were creatures unlike anything she'd ever seen. The closest one resembled a tall insect standing upright, with 4 arms and a head that seemed too large for its body. Its skin, or exoskeleton, shimmered with colors that shifted as it moved. Behind it stood 2 more creatures, one squat and gray with no visible features except 3 glowing spots arranged in a triangle, and another that seemed to be made of interconnected tubes that pulsed with light. Lily's mind struggled to process what she was seeing. The insect-like creature approached the barrier and pressed one of its 4 hands against it. A series of clicks and whistles filled the room. "I don't understand," Lily said, pressing herself against the wall. The clicks stopped, and a flat, mechanical voice replaced them. "Human female. Designation: Specimen 7294. Status: conscious. Where am I?" Lily demanded, forcing strength into her voice despite her fear. "Where's my dad?" "Origin planet remains under observation," the voice replied. "This specimen shows unusual neurological activity. Note for further study." The gray creature moved forward, its 3 glowing spots brightening. The wall became opaque again, cutting off Lily's view of her captors. Slowly, she explored her cell. It was roughly 10 feet square with no visible door. The walls seemed to be made of the same material as the floor, slightly yielding but impossible to damage. In one corner, a small depression formed what she guessed was a waste disposal unit. In another, a spout occasionally released a clear liquid that she cautiously tested and found to be water. As her initial panic subsided, Lily's mind began to work. Her father had taught her to stay calm in emergencies, to observe and plan. She was alive. They weren't harming her. That meant they wanted something. "Dad will come for me," she whispered to herself, running her fingers along the seamless wall. "And until then, I need to figure this place out." A faint sound caught her attention, something like crying coming from the other side of one wall. Lily pressed her ear against the surface. "Hello," she called out. "Is someone there?" The crying stopped, replaced by a scratching sound against the wall. Lily wasn't alone. and that meant there might be a way out. Frank Martinez sold his truck on a Tuesday. By Wednesday afternoon, he had converted his garage into a makeshift command center with the most powerful radio equipment he could find. The remaining money from the sale went to astronomy software and satellite data subscriptions that would have made NASA technicians raise their eyebrows. "You look like hell, Frank," said Diane Cooper, the local librarian who had been helping him research similar abduction cases. She set down a paper bag of groceries on the only clear space in the garage. "Haven't had time for sleep," Frank mumbled, his eyes never leaving the computer screen where he was plotting trajectory data. "I think I found a pattern." He pointed to a cluster of dots representing unusual atmospheric disturbances over the past 6 months. "Whatever took Lily has been here before. It follows a route, like a bus line, stopping at different planets." Diane glanced at the charts. "Even if you're right, how does this help us find Lily?" "If I can predict where it's going next, I might be able to send a signal strong enough to reach the ship." Frank pulled up another screen showing a half-built device that looked like a satellite dish attached to a ham radio. "I need 3 more days to finish this." Diane looked skeptical, but nodded. "I'll bring more coffee tomorrow." After she left, Frank returned to his calculations. His marine training had taught him that finding patterns was key to survival. The problem was that this pattern extended beyond Earth, beyond anything humans were supposed to know about. On the Voration ship, Lily had learned to measure time by the feeding cycles. 14 meals had passed since her abduction, which she guessed meant about 7 Earth days. She now knew the crying she'd heard came from a reptilian creature in the cell beside hers. They couldn't see each other, but through a series of taps and scratches, they had developed a basic form of communication. The reptilian, whom Lily called Rex in her mind, had been captive for much longer than she had. Lily discovered that by pressing her ear against different parts of the wall, she could hear activities in various sections of the ship. She created a mental map of guard rotations and feeding schedules. Human female exhibits problem-solving behaviors beyond expected parameters. The mechanical voice noted during one observation period, "Cognitive functions indicate potential for advanced development." The insect-like creature, a Voration, she had learned, entered her cell with another device. This one looked like a silver headband. "Remain still," the voice instructed. "Not until you tell me why I'm here," Lily demanded, backing away. The Voration made a series of clicks, and the headband floated from its hands, hovering in front of Lily. "Your species is being evaluated for potential. Most fail. Few demonstrate awareness beyond basic survival." "We're not lab rats," Lily said, dodging the floating headband. "All developing species are studied. It is the way of the cosmos." The headband suddenly darted forward, attaching itself to Lily's forehead before she could react. Pain shot through her skull, followed by a flood of strange images, star maps, symbols, and glimpses of worlds she'd never seen. When the device was removed, Lily collapsed to the floor, gasping. But something had changed. She understood things she shouldn't, like how the cell doors operated and the basic structure of the ship's communication system. "Unusual neural adaptation," the voice noted. "Specimen shows rare compatibility with Voration interface technology." After the Voration left, Lily crawled to the wall she shared with Rex. "I think I know how to get out," she tapped. "But I'll need help." Back on Earth, Frank's radio dish powered up for the first time. The massive antenna rotated toward a specific point in the night sky, broadcasting a simple message on multiple frequencies. "This is Frank Martinez, Earth. You have my daughter, Lily. I'm coming for her." The message repeated every 30 seconds, beaming into space with all the power Frank's homemade equipment could muster. On his monitor, something unexpected happened. A faint signal bounced back, not a reply, but a reflection. Something massive was out there, exactly where he had predicted. Frank's hands trembled as he fine-tuned the equipment. "I found you," he whispered. "Hold on, Lily. Dad's coming." The black SUVs arrived at dawn. Frank had just adjusted his antenna when headlights swept across his living room window. He peered through the blinds, counting 3 vehicles with government plates pulling into his driveway. "Took them long enough," Frank muttered. He had expected this since he began broadcasting. The equipment in his garage was powerful enough to be noticed by anyone monitoring unusual radio activity. A sharp knock came at the door. Frank grabbed a small flash drive, slipped it into his sock, and went to answer. "Mr. Martinez." A tall woman in a dark suit stood on his porch, flanked by 2 men with the rigid posture of military personnel. "I'm Agent Karen Wells, Department of Defense. We need to talk about your recent activities." "I'm trying to find my daughter," Frank said, not moving from the doorway. "Your unauthorized broadcasts are interfering with sensitive government operations," Agent Wells replied. "We'll need you to come with us." Frank crossed his arms. "Not until you tell me what you know about the ship that took Lily." A flicker of surprise crossed the agent's face before she regained her composure. "I don't know what you're talking about, Mr. Martinez." "The Voratian ship," Frank said, watching her reaction carefully. "The one that's been making abductions across North America for at least a decade. The one your agency has been tracking but doing nothing about." This time, Agent Wells couldn't hide her shock. She glanced at her colleagues, then back at Frank. "How do you know that term?" "My broadcasts got a response." Aboard the Voratian ship, Lily had made contact with 6 other captives besides Rex. Through a combination of taps, scratches, and what she now recognized as telepathic abilities awakened by the Voratian headband, she had organized them into a coordinated group. "The feeding cycle starts in what you'd call 20 minutes, Lily communicated to the others. "When the central door opens, the force field weakens around all cells simultaneously." Rex, whose actual name was a series of clicks impossible for Lily to pronounce, responded with a low rumble that translated in Lily's mind. "The guards will still outnumber us." "We don't need to fight them," Lily replied. "We just need to reach the communication center 3 levels up." The plan was risky. Since the headband experiment, Lily had discovered she could sense the ship's layout. The Voratians had accidentally created a connection between her mind and their technology, a connection they didn't seem to fully understand. As feeding time approached, Lily placed her hand against the wall of her cell, concentrating on the energy field that contained her. She could feel it now, a pattern of vibrations that had structure and rhythm. If she disrupted that pattern at precisely the right moment, a distant alarm suddenly blared through the ship. The lights in Lily's cell flashed from soft blue to harsh red. "Attention all units," came the mechanical voice over the ship's communication system. "Unknown signal detected from specimen planet. Origin: Northern Hemisphere, Western Continent." Lily's heart leaped. Dad. It had to be him. The Voratians were suddenly moving with urgency outside her cell. Through the momentarily transparent wall, she saw them clustering around communication panels, their insect-like appendages moving rapidly over symbols. "Signal contains linguistic patterns matching specimen 7294, announced the mechanical voice. "Primitive technology has achieved targeted deep space transmission. Threat assessment in progress." Lily couldn't help but smile. The Voratians were alarmed that a primitive species had managed to track their ship. What they didn't know was that Frank Martinez had spent his military career tracking things that didn't want to be found. The distraction was exactly what they needed. As the Voratians focused on the unexpected signal, Lily reached out with her mind, focusing on the energy field's pattern. Now, she communicated to the others. "They're distracted. The field is weakening." With a concentration of will that made her head pound, Lily pushed against the pattern in her mind. The wall of her cell flickered once, twice, then disappeared completely. Alarms screamed throughout the ship as other cells began opening. The rebellion had begun. In the confusion, Lily slipped out of her cell, her mind focused on a single thought. "I'm coming, Dad. Just hold on." Frank sat in a windowless room deep beneath what appeared to be an ordinary government office building in Great Falls, Montana. Agent Wells had been questioning him for 6 hours straight. The flash drive, hidden in his sock, felt like it was burning against his skin. "One more time, Mr. Martinez," Wells said, her voice showing no signs of fatigue. "How did you calculate the ship's trajectory with such accuracy?" "I told you, pattern recognition. Same skills I used as a scout in the Marines," Frank repeated. "What I want to know is why you people aren't doing anything to get those abductees back." The door opened, and a gray-haired man in an Air Force uniform entered. The stars on his shoulder indicated he was a general. Agent Wells immediately stood at attention. "Give us the room, Agent," the general said. When they were alone, the general sat across from Frank. "My name is General Alan Parker. What I'm about to tell you is classified above top secret." Frank leaned forward. "I don't care about your secrets. I just want my daughter back." "That's why I'm here," Parker said, opening a folder. "We've been tracking the Voratian vessels for 23 years. We know they've taken at least 17 humans. And contrary to what you believe, we have been trying to get them back." The general pushed a photo across the table. It showed what looked like a small spacecraft under construction in a massive hangar. "Project Homebound," Parker explained. "Reverse engineered from a Voratian scout ship that crashed in Wyoming in 2019. It's not ready for deep space travel, but after your broadcast and the response it triggered, we've accelerated the timeline." Frank stared at the photo. "You're planning a rescue mission." "We were," Parker corrected. "But we lack a critical component, someone who can track them accurately through space. Our best scientists have been working on it for years without success." Frank pulled the flash drive from his sock and placed it on the table. "My calculations and tracking algorithms. Everything you need to find that ship." Parker studied Frank's face. "Why give this to us now?" "Because I want to be on that rescue mission." Aboard the Voratian ship, chaos reigned. Alarms blared as captives from a dozen different worlds moved through the corridors. Lily led them, her mind partially connected to the ship's systems, guiding them away from security responses. "This way," she called to Rex and the others, heading toward a junction that would lead them to the communication center. 3 Voratian guards appeared, brandishing devices that Lily somehow knew were neural disruptors. She focused her thoughts, attempting to interfere with the devices as she had with the cell barriers. To her surprise, the weapons flickered and powered down. The Voratians clicked in alarm, backing away from the approaching captives. "They're afraid of us," Rex observed, his scaly form looming protectively beside Lily. "Not us," Lily corrected. "They're afraid of me. Something about my brain is different." They reached the communication center, a circular room filled with floating symbols and holographic displays. The chief Voratian scientist stood in the center, its 4 arms working frantically at different control panels. "Stop," Lily commanded, stepping forward. The scientist turned, antenna twitching. A series of clicks emerged, which the ship's system automatically translated. "Human female, your species was not predicted to advance this quickly. This changes the assessment." "What assessment?" Lily demanded. "The worthiness assessment. The Voratian Collective studies developing species throughout the galaxy. Those that demonstrate potential for awakening are monitored. Those that fail remain in containment." "And we're passing your test by breaking out?" Lily asked incredulously. "By demonstrating neural compatibility with advanced technology," the scientist corrected. "By transmitting signals that can track our vessels. By forming alliances across species barriers." It gestured at Rex and the others. "These are signs of an awakening species." Lily stepped closer to the main console. "Then you can release us all and leave Earth alone." "It is not so simple," the scientist clicked. "The Council must verify." A new alarm cut through the ship, different from the others. On the main display, a small craft appeared, approaching rapidly from Earth. "Impossible," the scientist clicked. "Primitive species cannot achieve space flight capable of." Lily smiled, recognizing the craft's design from the signal patterns in her mind. That's my dad. Frank's stomach lurched as the experimental spacecraft broke through Earth's atmosphere. The vessel, codenamed Firefly by Project Homebound, shuddered violently around him. Warning lights flashed across the control panel. "Stabilizers failing," reported Dr. Ellie Ward, the quantum physicist seated beside him. "Gravitational compensation at 60% and dropping." "Can we make it?" Frank asked through gritted teeth, his hands gripping the co-pilot's seat. Captain Roy Benson, the Air Force test pilot at the controls, gave a grim smile. "We don't have a choice." The ship had launched just 18 hours after Frank's meeting with General Parker. The mission was classified as a controlled test rather than a rescue operation, the government maintaining plausible deniability in case of failure. "Alien vessel now at coordinates 372 Mark 418, Ellie called out, reading from her display. "Distance approximately 800,000 kilometers in closing." Frank checked his own monitor. The tracking system he had built in his garage, now enhanced by military technology, showed the Voratian ship clearly. It was no longer moving away from Earth, but had stopped as if waiting. "They know we're coming," Frank said. Roy nodded, making adjustments to their course. "Good. Saves us the trouble of knocking." The Firefly stabilized as they moved further from Earth's gravity well. Its engines, hybrid technology combining human rocket science with salvaged alien propulsion, hummed with increasing power. "ETA 23 minutes, Roy announced. "Weapons check." Frank had insisted on being armed despite General Parker's objections. He now carried a rifle developed from Voratian technology that was supposed to disrupt their neural systems rather than cause physical damage. "Remember," Ellie cautioned, "we don't know what's happening on that ship. The signals we detected suggest some kind of internal conflict. Lily might not be the only human captive." Frank checked his weapon. "I'm getting my daughter. Anyone who stands in my way deals with me." As the Firefly approached the massive Voratian vessel, something unexpected happened. The alien ship's exterior lights changed from blue to green, and a large section of its hull began to open. "They're inviting us in," Roy said incredulously. Frank's jaw tightened. "Or it's a trap." "I'm detecting a signal," Ellie reported, adjusting her headset. My God, it's in English." She activated the ship's speakers, and a familiar voice filled the cabin. "Dad? Dad, can you hear me?" Frank nearly collapsed at the sound of Lily's voice. "Lily, are you okay? Are you hurt?" "I'm fine, Dad. The docking bay is open for you. The Voratians won't attack." Roy and Ellie exchanged skeptical glances, but Frank leaned forward. "How can you be sure?" "Because I'm in control of the ship now," Lily replied, her voice stronger than Frank had ever heard it. "Well, kind of. It's complicated. Just come in. There's something you need to see." Roy looked to Frank for a decision. After a moment's hesitation, Frank nodded. "Take us in." The Firefly entered the massive docking bay of the Voratian ship. As the smaller craft settled onto the alien deck, Frank saw dozens of creatures of different species gathered around the landing area. Standing at the front, flanked by a tall reptilian being and one of the insect-like Voratians, was Lily. The moment the Firefly's hatch opened, Frank rushed out, ignoring all safety protocols. Lily ran to meet him, throwing herself into his arms. "You came," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "You actually came." "I promised your mother I'd always protect you," Frank said, his voice breaking. "Nothing in the universe could stop me." As Roy and Ellie cautiously exited the ship, weapons ready, the Voratian stepped forward. Its antennae twitched as it made a series of clicking sounds that were translated by a device Lily held. "The human child has demonstrated extraordinary abilities," the mechanical voice said. "She has triggered the awakening protocol." Frank kept his arm around Lily's shoulders. "What does that mean?" "It means," Lily explained, "that according to their laws, Earth just graduated from specimen to sentient civilization status. The Voration clicked again. The Council requires verification of collective awakening, not just individual potential. Lily smiled at her father. That's where you come in, Dad. You just flew an impossible ship across space to find me. I think that counts as proof. 3 days after Frank's arrival, the Voration High Council convened in the ship's central chamber. Frank stood beside Lily, still barely believing everything that had happened. Captain Roy and Dr. Ellie waited nearby, documenting everything for Earth's records. The chamber resembled an amphitheater, with 7 elder Voratians positioned in a semicircle above them. Their exoskeletons were paler than the others, almost translucent, revealing complex circulatory systems beneath. Humans of Earth. The central elder's words were translated through Lily's device. For 10,000 cycles, the collective has sought awakening species throughout the galaxy. Few pass beyond the specimen phase. Frank stepped forward. You had no right to take my daughter or anyone else from our planet. The methods of the Seekers are not subject to primitive moral codes. Another elder clicked dismissively. Lily squeezed her father's hand, then addressed the council. But that's exactly what makes us different. We have codes you didn't expect. My father crossed space, not because of technology or power, but because of love. The council's antennae vibrated in what seemed like confusion. Explain this concept, demanded the central elder. Love isn't just emotion, Lily said. It's commitment. My father refused to accept that the universe had rules he couldn't break to protect me. That's humanity's strength. We don't accept limitations. The youngest-looking elder leaned forward. The human child speaks truth. Their spacecraft should not function. Their tracking systems should not detect us. Yet they achieved both through sheer determination. Frank watched his daughter with pride. In just days, she had changed from a scared teenager to someone speaking confidently to an alien council. Whatever they had done to her mind had awakened something extraordinary. We propose a covenant, the central elder announced. Earth will be recognized as an awakening world. All specimens will be returned. A cultural exchange will begin. And in return, Frank asked suspiciously, your daughter. The elder clicked, pointing at Lily. She has shown rare neural compatibility with our technology. She will serve as ambassador between our civilizations. Frank stepped in front of Lily protectively. Absolutely not. She's coming home. Dad, Lily said gently, moving beside him. I don't think they mean I have to stay here. The reptilian being, Rex, approached with a small device that looked like a silver circlet. This is a communion arc. It allows mental connection across vast distances. Lily would be connected to the collective while remaining on Earth. Frank looked uncertain. Is that what you want, Lily? She nodded. I've seen their library, Dad. They have knowledge from thousands of civilizations, medicine that could cure any disease on Earth, energy technology that would end pollution, star maps of places humans haven't even imagined. The child understands. The central elder clicked. Her mind grasps what many of our own cannot. Dr. Ellie stepped forward. General Parker will want guarantees that this technology won't be used to control or harm humans. The council's antennae twitched in what Lily now recognized as amusement. If we wished to conquer primitive worlds, we would not seek awakening species. Awakened civilizations are allies, not servants. As the details were negotiated, Frank pulled Lily aside. Are you sure about this? You're only 14. Lily smiled. Remember when Mom was sick, and you told me sometimes life gives us responsibilities we don't feel ready for. Frank's eyes misted at the memory of his late wife. I do. I'm ready for this, Dad. And I'll be coming home with you. 2 days later, the Firefly departed the Voratian ship, carrying not just Frank and Lily, but 17 other humans who had been taken over the years. Each had been given the choice to accept the communion arc. Only Lily and 3 others had agreed. As Earth grew larger in the viewport, Lily touched the silver circlet now fused gently to her temple. Through it, she could sense the vastness of the collective's knowledge. millions of years of gathered wisdom from across the galaxy. What happens now? Frank asked, watching his daughter's face. Lily smiled, taking his hand. Now we wake up the rest of humanity. Together. Back on Earth, the first rays of dawn broke over the Martinez farmhouse in Montana. A new day was beginning, not just for them, but for all of humanity. The Galactic Council's monitoring station detected the anomaly at exactly 300 Universal Standard Time. For hundreds of years, Earth had been noisy with radio waves, digital signals, and all kinds of electromagnetic emissions that bounced around the galaxy. Counselor Zixtel, who led the Earth observation team, was the first to notice when all that noise suddenly stopped. "This cannot be happening," Zixtel said, checking the equipment again and again. The silence was complete. Not a single transmission, signal, or even the usual military radar sweeps came from the blue planet. Earth had gone completely dark. Within hours, the council chamber was filled with worried voices. Earth was a level 3 civilization almost ready for space travel. Planets like that don't just go silent overnight. Humans had been the most interesting new species in the galaxy, growing their technology faster than any other world in known history. "We need to know what happened right away," said High Counselor Vrina, her 4 eyes blinking rapidly with concern. "Send observation ships. Keep the proper distance as our rules require, but I want visual proof of what's happening down there." The observation ships launched immediately. As they traveled toward the Sol system, everyone hoped for a simple explanation. Perhaps a massive solar flare had temporarily damaged Earth's communication systems. But deep down, the council members feared something much worse. The silence continued. Day after day, not a single signal came from the planet. The usual chatter of billions of devices had vanished completely. After 3 full days without any transmissions, the Galactic Council officially declared a civilization extinction alert, something they hadn't done in over 50,000 years. "We cannot just watch from a distance anymore," said Counselor Drax, pounding a scaled fist on the table. "If humans have destroyed themselves, we need to know how and why. And if something else caused this silence, we need to understand what could make an entire planet go dark." The lead scientist, Dr. Yala, disagreed strongly. "Our laws are clear. We do not interfere with developing worlds. Even if humans are gone, we must follow protocol." As the debate raged, the first observation ships reached Earth orbit. Their reports only deepened the mystery. Cities still stood. Oceans remained blue. Forests appeared green and healthy. There were no signs of nuclear war, disease, or natural disaster. The planet looked perfectly normal, except for one thing. "No electromagnetic emissions whatsoever," reported Captain Lorza from the lead ship. "Not even basic electrical activity that we can detect. Yet our scans show billions of human life signs." "How is that possible?" asked Vrina. "Billions of life signs, but no technology working." "Unknown, High Counselor," replied Lorza. "The humans appear to be frozen somehow. They're alive according to our scans, but not moving, not doing anything at all." The council chamber fell silent as everyone tried to understand what this could mean. In 3,000 years of observing other worlds, nothing like this had ever happened before. "Prepare a first contact team," Vrina finally ordered, breaking every rule in the council's ancient books. "We need humans who work with us secretly. Wake Dr. Nathan Bell from cryosleep and find Elizabeth Warren. She understands Earth cultures better than anyone." As the council members filed out of the chamber, Zixtel remained behind, staring at the live feed of Earth on the main screen. "What happened to you?" he whispered to the silent blue planet. What could possibly silence 7 billion humans all at once?